Imagine living in a world where the fastest way to send a message across the country involved a horse and rider. Days, sometimes weeks, would pass before your words reached their destination. Now picture an invention that changed all that, creating an information superhighway long before the digital age. Welcome to the fascinating story of the telegraph, the 19th century internet you didn't know about. Our story begins in the early 19th century, a time when communication was anything but instant. People relied on methods that were slow and unreliable. Think messengers on horseback, smoke signals, and carrier pigeons. These methods worked for local communication, but they were impractical for long distances. Enter Samuel Morse, an American inventor and painter. In the 1830s, Morse began experimenting with a new form of communication. After years of trial and error, Morse and his partner, Alfred Vail, developed a system that used a series of dots and dashes to represent letters and numbers. This was the birth of Morse code. But how did it work? The telegraph system was simple in concept. An operator would tap out a message in Morse code on a transmitter, sending electrical pulses through a wire. At the receiving end, another operator would decode the pulses back into readable text. It was an elegant solution to a complex problem, and it worked like magic. Imagine the scene: a small room, a simple machine, and the excited eyes of Samuel Morse and Alfred Vail as they sent the first successful message. Their invention had the potential to change the world. The first practical test of Morse's telegraph came in 1844, with a historic message sent from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, Maryland. The message read, "What hath God wrought?" a biblical phrase that underscored the profound impact of this new technology. The success of this demonstration sparked a frenzy of activity. Telegraph lines began to spread across the United States like wildfire, connecting cities and towns in a web of instant communication. By the 1850s, the telegraph had become an indispensable tool for businesses, newspapers, and even the government. One of the most ambitious projects of the time was the construction of the transcontinental telegraph line, which would link the east and west coasts of the United States. Completed in 1861, this monumental achievement reduced the time it took to send a message across the country from weeks to mere minutes. Imagine the sense of achievement as the final wire was connected and the first message traveled from coast to coast in an instant. The telegraph's impact wasn't limited to the United States. In 1858, the first transatlantic telegraph cable was laid between North America and Europe, allowing messages to be sent across the ocean for the first time. Though the initial cable failed after a few weeks, it paved the way for more successful attempts in the 1860s. This technological marvel shrank the world in a way that had never been imagined before. Governments, businesses, and individuals could now communicate across continents in a matter of minutes. It was a precursor to the global connectivity we take for granted today. Picture the excitement and anticipation as the first transatlantic message was sent, a bridge of communication connecting two distant continents. The success of the telegraph proved that the world was becoming smaller, more interconnected, and more accessible. The transatlantic cable had its challenges, though. The first attempt saw the cable break multiple times. It required immense technical skill and perseverance to lay the cable along the ocean floor, battling the forces of nature and the limits of contemporary engineering. The eventual success was not just a technical triumph, but a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. The telegraph wasn't just a tool for the elite. It transformed everyday life in countless ways. Newspapers used it to get the latest news from distant places. Businesses coordinated operations over vast distances, and families could stay in touch like never before. Imagine a family in the mid-19th century eagerly awaiting news from a loved one who had traveled west for the gold rush. Instead of waiting months for a letter, they could receive a telegraph message in just a few days. This new speed of communication brought people closer together, even when they were physically far apart. One particularly poignant example is the role the telegraph played during the American Civil War. It allowed President Abraham Lincoln and his generals to communicate in real time, a critical advantage in coordinating troop movements and strategy. The telegraph office in the White House became a hub of activity, with messages constantly arriving and departing. Consider the strategic advantage this provided. Rapid communication allowed for quick decisions and adjustments during critical moments of the war. The telegraph had become an essential tool in shaping the course of history. Businesses thrived with the telegraph. Stock prices, shipment schedules, and other vital information could be transmitted instantly, allowing for a new level of efficiency and coordination. The telegraph was the backbone of commerce, knitting together a rapidly industrializing nation. The technology behind the telegraph was groundbreaking for its time. Early systems used simple electrical circuits with wires stretched over poles or buried underground. Each telegraph station was equipped with a transmitter and a receiver. The operator would tap out a message on a key, which created electrical pulses. These pulses traveled along the wires to the receiving station, where they were translated back into text. However, maintaining these lines was no small feat. Weather conditions, wildlife, and human interference could damage the wires. Repair crews were constantly on the move, fixing fixing breaks and ensuring the smooth operation of the network. It was a labor-intensive process that required vigilance and expertise. Imagine the scene of a telegraph maintenance crew in the wilds of America, braving harsh weather and rugged terrain to ensure that lines remained operational. These unsung heroes played a crucial role in keeping the lines of communication open. The introduction of the transatlantic cable was another leap forward. Laying a cable across the ocean was a monumental task. The cable had to be strong enough to withstand the pressures of the deep ocean, yet flexible enough to be laid down smoothly. The project faced numerous setbacks, including cable breaks and transmission failures. However, the persistence of the engineers and workers involved eventually paid off, creating a lasting link between continents. The telegraph was not just about wires and machines, it was also about the people who operated and used it. Telegraph operators were skilled professionals who required training to send and receive messages accurately. They were the human interface of this technological marvel, translating the rhythmic clicks of Morse code into readable text. Operators often formed a close-knit community, sharing tips and stories about their work. They played a vital role in the telegraph network, ensuring that messages were sent and received accurately and efficiently. The telegraph also had a profound impact on society. It changed the way people thought about time and distance. News that once took weeks to travel could now be shared instantly. This shift had cultural and social implications, influencing everything from journalism to personal relationships. Consider the impact on journalism. Newspapers could report on events from around the world with unprecedented speed. This immediacy changed the nature of news, making it more timely and relevant. It also increased the demand for information, leading to the growth of news agencies and the professionalization of journalism. The telegraph's influence extended far beyond its heyday. It laid the groundwork for future innovations in communication, including the telephone, radio, and ultimately, the internet. Its impact on society was profound, changing the way people thought about distance and time. The principles of the telegraph, transmitting information over long distances using electrical signals, were adapted and expanded upon by later technologies. Alexander Graham Bell's invention of the telephone in 1876 built directly on the foundation laid by the telegraph. Instead of Morse code, the telephone transmitted voices, making communication even more direct and personal. Radio technology, which emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, also owed a debt to the telegraph. Radio waves carried information wirelessly, further expanding the reach and speed of communication. This paved the way for the global broadcast systems that became integral to the 20th century. The development of the internet in the late 20th century was another leap forward. The internet's ability to connect computers worldwide and transmit data instantly can trace its conceptual lineage back to the telegraph. The telegraph was the first technology to show that information could be shared quickly and efficiently over long distances, an idea that would revolutionize communication again and again. Today, we live in a world where information is at our fingertips, thanks to the foundations laid by the telegraph. It's a reminder of how far we've come and how a single invention can transform the world. Imagine the legacy of Samuel Morse and the countless inventors and engineers who built upon his work, leading us to the interconnected digital world we inhabit today. The telegraph was more than just wires and codes. It was the beginning of the information age.